The story begins with a family anxiously awaiting a special day. Errol is about to turn 10 years old, the age when the goddess bestows a class upon a person in a blessings ritual, which then allows them to acquire skills appropriate for that class. His family is incredibly nervous, especially his father, who hardly slept. His sister is sure Errol will be granted an amazing class, which she jokes will make him popular with the ladies, much to her own chagrin. Errol's parents are no ordinary people. His mother is the renowned sword princess Farah, and his father is the archmage Leon. Since two advanced classes got together, everyone in the village assumes their son is destined for greatness. The ritual begins, and the children step forward one by one. One boy is blessed with the blacksmith class, and he's thrilled because he can now follow in his father's footsteps. Then, it's Errol's turn. As he steps forward, the priest tells him to close his eyes so the goddess can grant a vision of his class. But there's a problem. The priest sees nothing. There's no response from the goddess. He realizes there's only one explanation for this. Errol is classless. The news sends a shockwave through the crowd and his family. Errol's family immediately goes into overprotective mode, with his mother and father telling him not to worry about getting a job because they'll just work past retirement to support him. They even tell him not to think about dying, as if being classless is a death sentence. His older sister chimes in, promising she'll always have his back no matter what. Errol gets angry at their coddling, shouting that he's not going to kill himself or sponge off them forever. He explains that he's not discouraged at all. He's been studying swordsmanship with his mother since he was little, and while having a swordsman class would make getting strong easier, he already knows how to wield a sword through pure practice. His family is moved by his mature and insightful words, declaring that he's destined for greatness. Errol, determined to prove himself, heads to the practice field. There, he encounters a couple of other boys who have just been granted the swordsman class. They're bragging about how having skills is amazing, making their bodies move on their own. They mock Errol when they see him, calling him the classless guy and questioning why he's even there. Errol states that he's there to train, just like them. The boys scoff, claiming they don't need training because they have skills and are just there to test them out. To prove their point, they show off their basic swordsmanship skill. Errol, unimpressed, asks one of them for a bout. The swordsman laughs at the idea of a classless person fighting a swordsman, saying Errol wouldn't stand a chance. But Errol insists he'd be a good match. The challenge is accepted. Before they fight, the swordsman confirms that Errol still has divine protection, a blessing everyone receives at birth that creates a protective barrier to absorb damage. Errol confirms he does, and the fight begins. The swordsman attacks wildly, but Errol, with his trained movements, easily dodges him. The other swordsman gets impatient and tells his friend they should just gang up on Errol. Errol welcomes the challenge, thinking it will be better practice. The two of them are clumsy, their skills not enhancing their teamwork, and they almost hit each other. Errol uses their incompetence to his advantage, quickly moving and taking them both down. He wins, but the boys refuse to accept defeat, calling him a coward for waiting until their guard was down. Suddenly, a red-headed swordsman appears and tells them to stop whining, asking if they think an enemy on a real battlefield would care about their excuses. He dismisses the two as chumps and turns his attention to Errol, whom he recognizes as the son of the sword princess Farah. He concedes that Errol must have some inherited talent to fight so well without a class, but warns him not to get a big head from beating those two. The redhead then challenges Errol himself, wanting to show him what a true swordsman can do. He reveals his father is Captain Evans, and he holds a grudge because everyone considers Errol's mother, Farah, to be the #1 swordsman in the village, not his father. He's determined to beat Errol to prove his family's superiority. He boasts that he's been a swordsman for a year and has already mastered intermediate skills through diligent training. Errol accepts, stating that his mother also drilled him in swordsmanship and he has no intention of losing. Their battle is intense, clashing like a thunderstorm. The onlookers are stunned that a classless boy can hold his own against someone with intermediate skills. Errol notices the redhead's anger is making his strikes sloppy and tries to find an opening. Just as he moves in, the redhead unleashes a powerful skill, Twin Blade Slice, a technique that launches 2 strikes in a single swing. Errol is surprised and manages to block, but he still gets hit. The redhead smugly explains that it's an attack skill that someone classless could never defend against. Sometime later, Errol is shown to be training relentlessly. He comes home late, all beaten up, which worries his family. His mother reveals to his sister a shed full of broken practice swords, proof of Errol's incredible hard work and dedication. He's been sparring with kids his age, and it has lit a fire in him. He is shown practicing alone, taking hits on purpose to fully understand and replicate the twin blade slice. He finally perfects it. While training in the woods, Errol hears the roar of a large monster nearby. He knows he should alert the guard but realizes a child might be in immediate danger. Believing in his newfound strength, he rushes towards the sound. He finds the red-headed swordsman on the ground, his divine protection depleted, about to be killed by a massive hobgoblin. Just as the redhead resigns himself to death, Errol leaps in and kills the monster with a perfect twin blade slice. The redhead is in shock. Errol gives him holy water to heal him, and the redhead immediately demands to know how he used that technique, yelling that it's a complex skill exclusive to swordsmen. Errol calmly explains that he simply put in the effort to learn it. He says that by seeing and experiencing the move up close during their fight, he was able to break it down into its core components of strength, speed, and timing. He even thanks the redhead, telling him he was the reason he figured it out. He wanted to win their next fight so badly that he trained relentlessly until he mastered it. The redhead, feeling indebted for being saved, offers a rematch right then and there as a way to pay him back. They face off again. The redhead uses his twin blade slice, but this time, Errol deflects both strikes effortlessly. The redhead is baffled, but then Errol unleashes his own attack. He tells him it was a third slash. He explains that because his twin blade slice isn't based on a skill, it has no restrictions. He can change it and add to it as much as his own abilities allow. He even cheekily thanks the redhead again, saying that seeing his refined version just now allowed him to improve his own on the spot and add the third slash. The redhead refuses to believe that a classless fakery could surpass a genuine skill. They decide to fight one last time to settle who is truly stronger. Errol is even faster this time, and he defeats the redhead again. He explains that his speed improved because, once again, watching the redhead's technique up close allowed him to instantly refine his own. A few days pass, and Errol overhears his parents talking about how the redhead, Evan's son, has set off for a place called Brescia, the City of Swords. Errol's mother mentions that she used to work there in a guild, a place where everyone would help each other get stronger. Hearing this ignites a new goal in RL. He decides he also wants to go to Brescia to find out just how strong he can become, even without a class of his own. 5 years later, RL is on a transport heading towards his goal, the City of Swords, Brescia. On the ride, 2 other passengers, a dual swordsman and a barbarian, are boasting about their advanced classes and how they're headed to the City of Dreams for any blade wielder. They try to strike up a conversation with each other, but the barbarian insults the dual swordsman's light armor, calling it a ridiculous outfit. The dual swordsman just explains that speed is key for his class, so dressing light is essential. Suddenly, their journey is interrupted by an orc horde attacking the transport, led by a massive king orc. The other passengers panic, knowing that it usually takes an entire party to hunt a king orc. They beg the 2 advanced class swordsmen for help, but the heroes are anything but. The dual swordsman immediately bails, yelling that he has his hands full, just keeping himself alive and he's not risking his life for others. The barbarian agrees and flees as well, leaving everyone else to fend for themselves. Just as an orc is about to strike down one of the passengers, Errol moves in a blur. He moves so fast it's like he vanished, using a blink dash skill to save the man. The driver of the transport, who seems surprisingly knowledgeable, is impressed but notes that the skill is hard to use when surrounded. Errol, however, proves him wrong, moving through the orcs like he's dancing. The driver recognizes the move as Blade Dance, a counter move skill that can only be used by the supreme class, Sword Princess. He's baffled, since the Sword Princess is a class only women can achieve, and wonders how this boy can use it. In a matter of moments, Errol takes down the entire horde all by himself. He calmly tells the driver that the problem is solved and they can proceed to Brescia. One of the passengers thanks him, saying he's already plenty strong, but Errol insists he wants to go to the city to train and get even stronger. When they ask what his class is, he shocks everyone by revealing that he doesn't have one. A flashback shows a younger Errol telling his mother, Farah, that he managed to reproduce the twin blade slice skill all on his own through sheer practice. He asks her to show him her Sword Princess skills so he can learn those too, eager to go to Brescia and test his limits. His mother is overcome with joy, realizing her son is a true prodigy. Back in the present, Errol arrives at Brescia. The driver, who identified all his skills, reveals that he's actually an advanced holy knight who takes trips working as a driver to refresh himself from the constant fighting. He advises Arl that if he wants to fight the strongest warriors in the battle tournaments, he needs to join a guild first, but warns him to be careful of shady ones. In the city, Arl is immediately swarmed by guild recruiters. One particularly persistent girl tries to get him to join her guild, Sword Road. Sword Road. Errol sees right through her desperation, figuring her guild must be a minor one short on members, so he declines. When she offers a full-day date with her as a special perk, he bluntly tells her he has no interest whatsoever, noting that her attitude and flat chest remind him of his sister. He cuts to the chase and asks her which guild is the most powerful. Annoyed, she tells him it's Black Blade, a guild with 8 A-rank swordsmen. Errol heads straight there, but his ambitions are immediately crushed at the reception desk. The guild requires all applicants for the entry test to be of an advanced swordsman class or higher. When Errol states he's classless, he's told to leave. He pleads for a chance to take the test, confident he can pass, but the rules are absolute. Dejected, Errol remembers that his mother gave him a letter of recommendation for her old guild, anticipating he might run into this exact problem. As he searches for the guild, the same persistent girl finds him again. She's practically begging him to join, admitting that her guild is on the verge of being disbanded because they don't have enough members. She even offers to lick his shoes. As she points him towards her guild's building to at least get him to visit, Errol recognizes the name from his mother's stories, Dragonfang. This is the guild his mother was in. He enters the run-down building and meets the girl's father, the former dual sword king who founded the guild. He's now a drunkard who has lost his right arm and tells Errol to leave because the guild is doomed. The girl, whose name is Lilia, looks defeated, but Errol surprises her by saying he wants to join, explaining that no other guild will have him anyway. Lilia is ecstatic and rushes him through signing the contract. However, her joy turns to fury when she finally sees his proof of class document and realizes he's truly classless. She feels completely tricked, screaming that a classless member is no help at all and their guild is still screwed. Just then, another person walks in, a red-headed girl named Reiner. She instantly recognizes Errol, but he doesn't remember her at first. She reminds him they're from the same village and used to train together 5 years ago. He vaguely recalls sparring with someone of her hair color but thought it was a boy, the son of Evans. Reiner corrects him, stating Evans only had a daughter, and that's her. He apologizes, admitting she looks very different now. Lilia remembers Reiner talking about a classless guy she can never beat and realizes Errol is him. Reiner, full of confidence, declares that she's gotten much stronger in the past 5 years and won't lose to him again. She challenges him to a bout for old time's sake. In the practice field downstairs, their duel begins. Reiner attacks with Twin Blade Slice, and this time her attack lands. She reveals she's now an advanced power bladesman, and her sword is 5 times heavier than a normal one. Thanks to her brute strength skill, her power is overwhelming, and she's sure he can't win just by countering with the same skills. Errol is impressed but unfazed. He tells her that now that he knows the secret to her strength, he won't have to take any more hits. He uses the Shadow skill, a supreme class technique, to create an afterimage and dodge her attack completely. Reiner is stunned, unable to comprehend how a classless person can use such a high-level skill. Errol simply says he learned to move really fast. Reiner tries again, but her attack only hits another afterimage. She reveals another trick up her sleeve, the Power Bladesman's Guts skill, which reduces the damage she takes from his slashes. Seeing this, Errol decides to use one of his mother's techniques, the Sword Princess counter skill, Obtain Counter. He flawlessly executes it, deflecting her power and defeating her. Reiner collapses, devastated and crying that she lost again, despite all her hard work. After the fight, Lilia's attitude does a complete 100. She warmly welcomes Errol to Dragonfang, claiming she believed in him all along, though he reminds her she was just biting his head off. With the contract signed, he asks why the guild is so screwed. Lilia confesses they are in a massive amount of debt. Their only hope is a guild competition happening in 1 week. The prize money is enough to pay back their loans with cash to spare, but they needed a third member to even be eligible to enter. Aurel learns that Reiner has been a loyal member ever since Lilia's father took her in when other guilds rejected her for being a kid. The catch is that in the competition, the three of them will have to fight against a team of 5 opponents of unknown strength. While Lilia is terrified of the odds, Errol is thrilled. He says fighting tough opponents to refine his techniques is the whole reason he came to Brescia in the first place. The next morning, Lilia makes a big announcement, telling everyone that since their guild, Dragonfang, now has 3 members, they are eligible to participate in the guild competition this weekend. Aurel asks if winning will get them enough prize money to keep the guild going, and Lilia confirms it will. She explains the rules. It's a one-on-one elimination-style tournament where the guild with no members left loses. Teams are limited to 5 members, so they'll have to make do with their 3. She tries to be optimistic, saying it's rare to face A-rank swordsmen and they have 2 B ranks on their team. This prompts Aurel to ask what A rank and B rank even mean. Lilia is surprised he doesn't know and explains it's a ranking of individual strength. Out of about 500 swordsmen in the city of Brescia, only around 20 are A rank. She and Reiner are B rank, and she figures that since Aurel beat Reiner, he's probably B rank as well. She believes they can win as long as they don't get matched against an A rank. Lilia then heads to the Colosseum to check the tournament bracket and see who their first opponent is. With her gone, Errol turns his attention to training. He asks Reiner about her skills, specifically what she has besides brute strength. She tells him she also has the Guts skill, which makes her divine protection last longer. Errol finds this fascinating and wants to learn it. In a truly bizarre request, he asks Reiner to hit him with her sheathed sword. Reiner is completely flustered and misunderstands his intentions, thinking he's making some kind of weird masochistic advance and stammering that she doesn't know how to hit someone in a pleasurable way. Errol quickly clarifies the huge misunderstanding, explaining that he wants to learn the Guts skill, and since Guts is about taking a hit, the most effective way to learn it is to get hit while his divine protection is down. Reiner calls him an idiot, insisting that skills are a blessing from the goddess and not something you can just learn through practice. But Errol challenges her certainty, reminding her that he learned Twin Blade Slice and the Shadow skill on his own. To prove his point, he picks up her custom-made sword, which is 5 times heavier than a normal one, and swings it with ease, despite not having the brute strength skill. He tells her he has more than just brute strength, and that all his skills were obtained through daily drilling. This finally convinces Reiner. She realizes that effort isn't meaningless and agrees to help with his special training, promising not to hold back. Just as they're about to start, Lilia comes running back in a total panic. She has horrible news. Their first opponent is the current top guild, Black Blade, and they have 8 A-rank swordsmen. To make matters worse, their guild boss, Georg, is known for being vicious and will definitely go all out to crush them. Despite the grim outlook, Lilia declares they have to win and come together as a team, only to find Reiner about to beat Errol up. Aurel clarifies that it's just special training, but Lilia thinks Reiner is just taking her stress out on the newbie. After all the drama, Aurel says he's hungry and they decide to get some food. On the day of the guild competition, they arrive at the massive Colosseum. The crowd is already buzzing, talking about the match between the old top guild, Dragonfang, and the new one, Black Blade. Of course, everyone assumes Black Blade will win easily, mocking Dragonfang as a guild that crashed and burned. Aurel notices a betting station, and Lilia sheepishly reveals that the odds on them winning are an insane 20-1. Then she drops a bombshell. She took out another loan using their guild's home base as collateral and bet everything on them winning. Her logic is that if they lose, they're screwed anyway because the prize money is their only hope, so they might as well go down in a blaze of glory and try for a miracle victory that will make them rich. As they're processing this, Georg, the boss of Black Blade, approaches them. He's incredibly smug, claiming he's there to cheer them on because he's so upset that his former rival guild has fallen on hard times. He then reveals that he used his influence to specifically match their guilds against each other, framing it as a favor to give them a shot at the spotlight and some money. Lilia sees right through it, knowing he just wants to publicly humiliate and destroy them. The competition begins, and it's announced that Black Blade's entire team is composed of A-rank swordsmen. The first fighter for Dragonfang is Aurel. As he takes the stage, the announcer calls him the Classless Errol, and the entire crowd erupts in disbelief and ridicule, wondering if he has a death wish. His opponent, an A-rank fencer named Gio, is equally unimpressed. The match starts, and Geo immediately attacks with a blink dash into a critical thrust, but Errol uses the shadow skill to create an afterimage and dodges. He then creates 2 more afterimages, baffling Geo, who can't tell which is real. Errol appears behind him, revealing all 3 were afterimages, and tells him his mother could make 5 without even trying. He defeats Geo in a single blow, stunning the audience. Errol's victory is just the beginning. He proceeds to crush 2 more A-rank swordsmen in quick succession, leaving everyone speechless. Lilia is ecstatic, already dreaming of a perfect sweep. His 4th opponent is a shield swordsman who proves to be tougher since Aurel can't land critical hits. He has to slowly wear down the opponent's divine protection. The shield swordsman attacks with a shield bash, but Errol uses foresight, a skill he learned from his mother, to dodge and kick the shield out of his opponent's hands. He then perfectly imitates the shield bash himself, combining it with a blink dash to defeat the 4th opponent. By now, the crowd is in an uproar, accusing him of lying about being classless. The tournament administrators decide to publicly disclose Aurel's class ID using a magic crystal ball. The result is clear: classless. The Colosseum falls into a stunned silence. With victory in sight, Lilia's mind goes from getting rich to securing the guild's future, and she quietly decides she needs to get a marriage certificate to tie Errol down before he can get away. The final opponent for Blackblade is their secret weapon, a master swordsman from the east named Masamune, an advanced class samurai wielding a katana. He radiates a dangerous aura without even drawing his sword. He reveals his plan is to lure Aurel in and finish him with his ultimate skill. Errol, wanting to see this skill for himself, decides to approach. Masamune warns him that the moment his skill activates, the fight will be over. It becomes a showdown of speed. As Aurel steps into range, Masamune unleashes his ultimate technique, an EIE slice, a draw and cut so fast it's almost invisible. But Errol is faster. He vanishes completely, reappearing behind Masamune untouched. He calmly states that while Masamune is the fastest person he's met in the city, he was taught by someone even faster. Before Masamune can react, Aurel unleashes the Sword Princess's ultimate skill, Piercing Tempest, a flurry of unstoppable thrusts that ends the match. Errol has done the impossible. Dragon Fang wins the competition with a spectacular clean sweep. The crowd who bet on Blackblade is furious, demanding their money back. Lilia rushes to hug Aurel in celebration, but he instinctively dodges, a habit from training with his sister. She's not bothered, overjoyed that the guild is saved and they've made a fortune. She even offers to strip off her armor for a proper hug, which he dodges again. Elsewhere, a furious Georg vows that he won't let this classless nobody get away with humiliating him. After their victory, the group celebrates with drinks, but since Errol and Reiner are too young, they just have juice. One of the women, feeling celebratory, jokingly asks Errol to marry her, but he bluntly turns her down, saying he prefers someone more like Reiner. This stings the woman, and another one gets angry, telling Aurel he could have come up with a better lie to reject her. The woman laments that people have always said she's like a man because she only swings swords and has no womanly charms. Errol says he doesn't agree, but she insists that she's focused on becoming the strongest swordsman and doesn't have time to be feminine. Lilia then tries her luck, telling Errol she'll help him relax in his room with a nice massage, but Errol just says he'd like to get one from Reiner instead, much to her annoyance. The scene switches to what Errol meant by a massage, and it's actually Reiner torturing him in an underground dungeon as part of his training. Errol explains that being pushed to the brink of death is the only way for him to master the Guts skill, and he needs a trustworthy and capable friend to help him. Reiner is flattered but thinks Aurel is a total meathead for enjoying it. Suddenly, Reiner's dad, Rod, shows up and asks what all the noise is about, assuming they're training because they got thrashed in their match. Lilia proudly announces that they won against the A-rank members of Blackblade. Rod is skeptical, suggesting they must have fought newbies, but Lilia clarifies that Errol beat them all by himself. Rod is surprised by Aurel's strength but remains cynical, pointing out that someone that strong will just get poached by a better guild, leaving them screwed again. Lilia tries to reassure him by declaring that she and Errol are getting married, but Errol immediately shuts that down, saying he never made such a promise. Rod dismisses the whole thing as pointless and calls Lilia an idiot, but Errol defends her, saying she's better than losers who just give up. He confronts Rod, asking when he's going to stop moping around and pointing out that he can still wield a sword with one arm. Rod explodes, yelling that a dual swordsman who can't use two swords is left with a bunch of useless skills. Errol calmly replies that he wouldn't know, since he's classless and doesn't have a single skill of his own. This seems to get through to Rod. Later, Lilia thanks Errol, hoping his words will motivate her dad to get back in action. Errol says he wants Rod to show him some skills, as he could learn a lot from a dual swordsman. This gives Lilia an idea. They should go to the enormous dungeon underneath the city to get battle experience for the Sword God Cup. Errol has no idea what that is, so she explains it's a huge tournament to decide the strongest swordsman. She says if he wants to participate, he just needs to sign an entry sheet, but when she hands it to him, he sees it's actually a marriage certificate. As he puts her in a headlock, some shadowy figures watch from a distance, noting that the group is heading to the dungeon tomorrow and planning to arrange a little accident for them. The next morning, Lilia sneaks into Errol's room wearing a revealing outfit, planning to wake him up with a kiss and seduce him. But her plan backfires completely when Errol wakes up and is completely unimpressed, calling her a sexual predator. He calls Reiner on a magic device and asks her to come collect the wild beast in his room. On the other end, Reiner is sleepily talking to her dad, telling him she's now a power bladesman just like him and acting like a little kid. Rod eventually comes to Errol's room to see what the commotion is and is horrified to see how Lilia is dressed, calling her a stupid girl. They all head to the dungeon, which is packed with people training for the Sword God Cup. Lilia explains that a teleportation seal lets adventurers jump to any floor they've previously reached. Errol wants to fight something strong right away, so Lilia tries to ditch Reiner by saying one guide is enough. But Errol insists that Reiner come with them. Their first fight is against some living armor monsters. They're fast, but Ariel and Reiner defeat them with ease. Errol is intrigued that they regenerate, thinking they're perfect for training. Lilia, who did nothing, tries to take credit. Errol asks what her class is, and she says she's a fencer. He knows the advanced class for a fencer is Sword Princess, which means Lilia is useless for teaching him new skills. Offended, Lilia says she can teach him something very important: compassion. As they go deeper, they find a man covered in blood who begs them to rescue his friends from a trapped room. Reiner immediately wants to help, but Lilia stops her, saying it's every man for himself in the dungeon and they need to negotiate a price first. Errol thinks she's being harsh, especially after her lecture on compassion. The man recognizes Lilia from a magazine article that called her a ditzy doll from a disgraced guild, which embarrasses her. He offers them all the money he has, and Lilia greedily accepts. Errol is suspicious though. He notes that for the amount of blood the guy has on him, he shouldn't be able to stand, let alone walk. He correctly deduces that the injuries are fake and that this is a trap, but he decides to play along because it looks like it'll be fun. The man leads them to a hidden room. While looking around, Lilia spots a gold coin and lunges for it, triggering a teleport trap that sends the entire group, including the man who set the trap, to a sealed room on a much lower floor. The man, whose name is Deal, is furious he got caught in his own trap. He confesses he was hired to lure them there, a place where advanced level sword gods lie in wait. Suddenly, a massive slashing attack, a divine air slice, cuts through the room. Errol tanks the hit with his guts skill, barely losing any divine protection. A figure moves at incredible speed using divine step. It's a sword god. Errol is thrilled, seeing this as the perfect chance to test his own skills, and he meets the sword god's speed with his own divine step. The sword god then uses a skill called Divine Presence, which paralyzes everyone with immense pressure. As they struggle to even stand, the sword god prepares its next attack, the Infinite Break, a high-speed chopping move. Errol has a flashback of his mother training him and using the exact same skills. He remembers her telling him how to counter them. Back in the present, just as the sword god attacks, Errol breaks free and unleashes his own Infinite Break, defeating the powerful enemy. Everyone is in shock. Reiner asks how he knows sword god skills, and Errol casually reveals that his mother is a sword god who was just pretending to be a sword princess back in their village because she dislikes the attention. After the fight, a teleportation spell appears, and they decide to take Deal with them as they escape. Meanwhile, the thugs who hired Deal are celebrating the demise of the Dragon Fang Guild. Rod shows up and confronts them, but then their leader, Georg, arrives. Georg taunts Rod, telling him his daughter Lilia has walked into a dangerous trap in the dungeon. Rod is devastated, believing the man who took his arm has now killed his daughter. But just then, Errol, Reiner, and Lilia walk into the bar, perfectly fine. Georg is stunned. Errol informs him that Deal confessed everything and named Georg as the mastermind. Georg scoffs, saying the rules of the dungeon mean everyone is responsible for their own safety. Fuming in private later, Georg rants about how his plan failed and how a classless nobody like Errol can defeat superclasses, robbing him of his title as the strongest. As he seethes with resentment for always being in the shadow of prodigies, a sinister voice speaks to him, drawn to his powerful grudge, and offers to grant his wish. A shadowy being materializes before the shocked Georg. The preliminary brackets for the Sword God Cup are posted, and one of the girls is completely freaking out because she and Errol are in the same block, which means her dreams of making it to the main event are crushed for another year. Aurel asks what these preliminaries are even for, and she explains that so many people want to enter the tournament that they have to hold qualifying rounds where only the winner from each block gets to advance. Reiner tries to comfort her by pointing out that getting into the tournament was already a huge challenge at her skill level, but the girl just calls it a pretty way to cheer someone up. Reiner is happy she's in a different bracket, though she knows she'll face tough opponents anyway and is determined to pass the prelims this year to impress her Papa. She gets super embarrassed when Errol calls her out on it, insisting she calls him Dad and doesn't always say Papa. The girl, now fired up, declares she won't give up either and says that's why they're all heading back to the dungeon for special training. Errol is surprised he has to go too, but she insists they need him there to save them if something bad happens. As they leave, Reiner's dad, Rod, tells them to be careful and watch out for any traps Georg might have set, reminding them to run away the second they feel like they're in danger. After they're gone, Rod has a moment of self-reflection, thinking it's a little late for him to play the protective father, but deciding he needs to stop being a drunk and become a proper swordsman and a father again. The story jumps to the preliminaries, where the girl immediately loses her match. She's super disappointed, saying she really thought she'd make it to the final round this year. Errol teases her that she was going to lose even if they weren't in the same bracket, which just makes her feel worse. He then says it's a shame because he was looking forward to fighting her, but she just accuses him of lying to make her feel better. She quickly shifts gears and warns him about his opponent in the block finals, telling him to keep his guard up because the competitor has some really unique skills. Errol is doubtful since he feels like he's seen almost every skill in the dungeon, but she clarifies that he's only seen swordsmanship skills, and this opponent uses something different. Her class is Magic Swordsman, and she fights by enchanting her sword with magic. Errol thinks it's weird for a magician to be in a swordsman tournament, but the rule is that anyone registered with a guild can enter, which makes sense to him since they let him in as a classless. The match begins, and the Magic Swordsman immediately tells Aurel not to make any pathetic excuses about magic being unfair if he loses, since her class is totally legitimate. Errol just says the better fighter will win, and that's all that matters. She attacks him with a flurry of sword strikes and magic projectiles, showing off how she can switch between short and long-range attacks. She boasts that a classless like him can't possibly beat her, but Errol coolly points out that she's not a master of either sword or magic, and her skills aren't up to par with a typical advanced class. This makes her furious, and she yells at him to see what he thinks after she hits him with her ultimate skill, Magic Sword, which transforms her blade into a sword of fire. She claims it's the ultimate blade that only Magic Swordsmen can use, and its erratic movements make it hard to predict. Errol agrees it's a great skill, but once again says that it would only be the ultimate blade if it were fully mastered. He adds that if her basic swordsmanship were at least better than Lilia's, it might have been effective, which gets an indignant reaction from Lilia in the crowd. The Magic Swordsman completely loses it, calling him a lowly, classless loser and attacking with her twin blade slice. But Errol effortlessly counters, nullifying her flame enchantment before using Blink Dash to get behind her and win the match. He reflects that he's learned something new and thinks he might be able to learn magic himself with some special training. After the match, Lilia excitedly tells her dad they're going to the main event to cheer Errol on, but Rod refuses to go. Lilia insists, even telling him that guilds with members in the main event get great seats, but he's adamant. She asks if he's afraid of running into Georg, which makes Rod explode in anger, denying he's scared. He explains that he recently picked up his sword and realized he's gotten so rusty that he probably couldn't even win the Sword God Cup himself anymore. Lilia gets furious, yelling that he has no idea how it feels for people who can't even get into the main tournament, and she threatens to tie him up and drag him there. Rod finally gives in, Lilia then softens, saying she knew he would have come to watch in secret anyway because he loves seeing his guild members, especially his longtime student Reiner, succeed. At the main tournament, Reiner is a nervous wreck because they don't find out their opponents until just before the matches start, leaving no time to strategize. Errol teases her that she's just worried about having to fight him in the first round, which she denies. The announcer then reveals the competitors for the first match: last year's champion, the Sword Emperor, Georg, versus the classless newcomer, Ariel. Everyone is shocked. Reiner wishes him good luck, and Rod yells from the stands for Arl to whoop Georg's butt. But when Georg steps onto the stage, he looks like a monster. Rod screams for Errol to stay away, recognizing that Georg is wielding a cursed sword with a powerful demon sealed inside. The possessed Georg is surprised someone recognizes the sword and asks if Rod is from the Imperial Court, showing he doesn't recognize Rod at all. It becomes clear he's been possessed by the demon named Dergelda, who was sealed away by the sword god long ago. Dergelda announces that after centuries of waiting, his seal has been broken and now it's time for him to wreak havoc. The crowd panics as they recognize the name of the legendary demon lord who once destroyed the city. As people try to run, Dergelda puts up a barrier, trapping everyone inside while he revels in their fear. Errol, however, stands his ground, confident he can beat the demon since the sword god already did it once. Dergelda laughs, saying the old sword god is dead and no one can defeat him now. Errol corrects him, saying a sword god still exists, and even if Errol isn't one, he can still win. He then uses Divine Step, a sword god skill, completely shocking Dergelda. The demon attacks with the power of a sword emperor, but Errol dodges easily, attributing his resilience to the guts skill he trained with Reiner. He then unleashes his own infinite break, overwhelming Dergelda, who can't believe a mere child is using the same skills as the sword god. Errol declares he's just a simple classless and defeats Georg's body. But Dergelda's spirit isn't finished. Refusing to be sealed again, he decides to possess a new host to escape. He spots Lilia in the crowd and lunges for her, but Rod heroically jumps in the way and gets possessed instead. Arl realizes his mistake was not destroying the magic sword, which was the demon's true body. Now in control of Rod, Dergelda grabs Lilia as a hostage and threatens to kill her if Errol attacks, revealing he knows from Rod's memories that Lilia claimed Errol was her fiancé. Arel is completely cold, saying he doesn't remember that and that he'll just kill them both. He even states that someone isn't a hostage unless they're actually worth something, which devastates Lilia. She breaks down, confessing to the demon that she lied and begging for her life. Dergelda calls her worthless trash and prepares to kill her anyway, but suddenly finds he can't move. Rod is fighting back from inside his own mind. He rejects Dergelda's temptations of power, yelling that Errol taught him anyone can reclaim their glory with hard work. With a final surge of will, Rod forces his demon-possessed body to charge straight at Arel, giving him the perfect opening. As Lilia screams for him to stop, Arl understands Rod's sacrifice and unleashes a final, decisive strike.